right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Week 7 update for the Star City Blood Bowl League. All the results have been entered for the first 7 weeks of play. We got 2 weeks to go until the playoffs, and then we will crown the Season 4 champion of the Star City Blood Bowl League. I guess I want to start off first off by congratulating the Birchwood Barons. The Barons have locked in a playoff spot as one of the top 4 teams that will be competing for the championship trophy. The Barons have 6 wins and 1 loss with a +9 touchdown differential. They're sitting at a 1480 TV, and they have just a few games left, obviously, to close out a pretty great season, in my opinion, as they've been able to avoid any significant injuries that have hurt their chances of competing in future matches. I think a lot of times when they take a lot of injuries, they've been, badly hurt or worst case missing next games with very few dead players um, happening throughout the season, and so they've been able to kind of glide past or should I say, leap past a lot of their opponents with their 2-star award answers in place, and we should see both Florian and Hagar likely in the playoffs as long as they can squeak by the remaining regular season games to make it to the playoffs. So I guess looking at the standings of what we have now, the Barons, like I said, have 12 points. They're in first place. Um, they have 6 wins and 1 loss. The Rate Serpents have 11 points. They're sitting at a 1270 team value. They have a total of 21 casualties, which is third most in the league right now. They have 4 wins and 3 draws. They're the only team in the league to not technically lose a game yet. So they're sitting undefeated. The Cave Spring Spartans have kind of rallied back from a couple rough games kind of in the early parts of the season, and they're sitting at 10 points. They've only caused 8 casualties, which is one of the lower amounts for the top teams in the league right now. And they have 5 wins, 2 losses, and a +5 net. They've actually only allowed 4 touchdowns all season, which is kind of rank them up as #1 defense in the league right now. The Night Terrors also have 10 points. They're at a 1440 team value. They've caused the second most casualties in the league so far, and they have 4 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws, and a +2 net. And then the Hazmat Hulks have come up from, I think they were in about, maybe they were sixth or seventh place in the league, and they bounced all the way up to 5th with a big win over the Southwest Backstabbers, which gave them a +2 net touchdowns, which was and more casualties than their other competition that are tied at 7 points. Right behind them is the Eshin Assassins. They have also a +2 net touchdown differential, but they have quite a bit fewer casualties. Actually, the least amount of casualties caused through 7 games, which is just 2 for the Skaven. And then the Skyrim Stormcloaks, the other Norse team in the league, has the most casualties caused in the league. They're led by Codlack Whitemane, which is the Yeti, who is not only the season leader in casualties, but the league leader in history of casualties caused, and we'll get into that bit in a little bit. And they're sitting at a +1 net touchdown differential. That's kind of why they fell back a little bit in the standings, but they're sitting on a whole lot of casualties that, if they can try and play a little good better defense and score some touchdowns in their last few games, then it should jump them back up into that 5th or so picture there. The Mad Hat Clover Clobbers have kind of fell off a little bit here lately. Um, they lost another one, I think, this week. Let me look. Yep, they lost another one to the Night Terrors this week. So the Dwarves, even though they're getting skilled up, they're very scary on paper. Have just been too slow to keep up with the other teams. They've been outscored by about 5 touchdowns so far, and they've been beat up a little bit here lately. The Broad Street Ghoulies, they have lost 6 games, but if you look at that team on paper, they really shouldn't lose that many games. I think they're definitely a team that's kind of built itself up at the last part of the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come away with a win or even a few wins here at the back half of the season. to kind of close out their team build more or less, as a lot of their players have skilled up, got some really great skills. Whites with plus strength, they got ghouls with plus agility, and so they're a really scary team on paper. The werewolves by no means are anything to laugh at, because they have a movement 9 werewolf that can get all over the field whenever you're not ready. And then the Southwest Backstabbers is currently our last place team. They've lost 7 straight games, and been outscored by 17 touchdowns. But this is a new coach's first season. He's just getting used to things within the league, and so I'm not surprised to see that Skaven team struggling. Skaven aren't an easy team for a new coach to take on. But I think that hopefully he's having fun playing with all of us, and hopefully he comes back in the future seasons. But maybe he can pull out a win or so, or get a few more scores in at least before the end of the season. So with that, kind of look at the last games that happened from this week. As I mentioned, the Hazmat Hulks had a big win over the Backstabbers 3-0. The Spartans pulled out a win over the Ghoulies 1-0, and the Ghoulies induced Ramtut III, which is the star player Mummy, who made an appearance to take place for the hurt werewolf and ghoul for the Ghoulies. The Night Terrors pulled out a 2-1 win over the Mad Hat Clover Clobbers. The Birchwood Barons outscored in the touchdown showdown the Skaven of the Eshin Assassins 3-1. And the Skyrim Stormcloaks and the Tlax Wraith Serpents tied 2-2. But if you look at the casualties there, that game really probably should have went to the Stormcloaks, as they really put a hammering on the Wraith Serpents, Saurus and Skinks in that match. So looking at the most touchdowns in the division so far, it's no surprise Snip Silent Paw is still the leader here in really Star City Blood Bowl League history. He's sitting at 13 touchdowns scored over 7 games, which is, almost 2 a game, which is really crazy. He's almost got double that of the next people behind him. Not far behind is Norin, who has 8 touchdowns scored for the Skyrim Stormcloaks. And then a couple other active players in the league right now. We have Florian Bladesinger, Baby. Baby was the Stegadon Stampeders. He was the last season team. But Florian with the Birchwood Barons has 6, and Vilkas with the Cave Spring Spartans also has 6. So most touchdowns, we were kind of talking about this a little bit. Codlack Whitemane has a total of 10 casualties calls so far this season. Not far behind, though, and that's probably due to the most recent game. Kyle, which is a blitzer for the Hazmat Hulks, has 7. So he is the second most player in the league with the most individual casualties. There's a few mummies for the Night Terrors that are coming in there. Bubba Hotep and Mumbra the Everliving. They're also on the board with 6 and 5 apiece. And then Old Blackthorn, the Treeman for the Birchwood Barons, has a total of 5 casualties caused. So, latest dead players. I think we just had 4 total players die this week, which was pretty crazy. 3 were with the Wraith Serpents. I think it was 2 Skinks and 1 Saurus. And then Colby Chestervan, the Southwest Backstabbers, Skaven Lyman, also 6 feet underground as of today. And then we have a few players that are going to be that have skilled up recently. Squeaks McGee, the Gutter Runner for the Backstabbers. We have, let's see, I think that's really it right now. There's a few other players that skilled up, but I think some of that was last week. Even if not, it looks like the Clover Clobbers picked up another Mighty Blow recently, and the Barons picked up Leader for probably an all-important 3rd reroll, or maybe even a 4th reroll at this point. So kind of looking at player statistics now, kind of see where everybody's at. All right, so the most expensive star player value players in the league right now, 2 different players, Florian Bladesinger and Codlack Whitemane. Both are valued at they're getting a monster salary of 210,000 each. Number 3 and 4 is Vilkas, the Cave Spring Spartans runner at 180K, and then Swamp Thing which is I think he is the Croxagore for the Wraith Serpents. He is also at 180K, and then the touchdown scorer himself, which is Snip Silence Paw, is at 170K, and then followed by Norin, also is at 170K, and then there's a few other players in that 170K range. So looking at most touchdowns scored by anybody in this league so far, like I said, Snip Silent Paw currently has 13 touchdowns scored in the league so far. Norin with the Stormcloaks has a total of 8 scored. You can see right here. Florian Blade, Singer, Vilcus each have 6, and Gruel with the Night Terrors has 5. And looking at completions, Talia Brightleaf kind of widened her kind of gap between passers, as have pulled out 17 completions so far. The next closest is 4 for it looks like the Stormcloak's thrower, and Longshot, which is I think a thrower for the Eshin Assassins. Interceptions. We had our first interception the other week, which is Kyle of the Hazmat Hulks. He is a blitzer, and so he has the only interception so far in the season. Casualties calls. We have Codlack, Whitemane, Kyle, Bubba Hotep, Mumbra the Everliving, Old Blackthorn, and Snicker with 10, 7, 6, 5, 5, and 4 casualties caused apiece. Most badly hurts caused. Codlack, Whitemane has caused a total of 7 badly hurts. Most significant injuries. Kyle with the Hazmat Hulks has caused 5 significant injuries. And then most kills is Codlack, Whitemane, and Gruel with the Night Terrors, each with 2 kills. And then most MVPs, we got 3 players with 3 MVPs each, which is Snip Silent Paw, Ray El Diablo Lewis, and Talia Brightleaf. All right, so continuing on, we also have most star player points so far this year. This is typically given an award that is given to what you would consider to be the most valuable player. It's usually the Spike Magazine Player of the Year. And so far right now, Snip Silent Paw is leading that race with a total of 54 star player points accrued so far this season. The next closest would be Kyle with 38, Norin with 34, and Talia with 32. So that kind of wraps up where our players are right now. Looking at some of the upcoming matches we have left, as I mentioned, we only have a total of 10 games left to play, two per person, and so starting off with a really great match in week 8 is going to be the Night Terrors against the Cave Spring Spartans. This is the number 3 team against the number 4 team. Potential playoff kind of picture of what may happen in a playoff setting if these two teams faced off. We also have the Clover Clobbers against the Ghoulies. We have the Hazmat Hulks against the Birchwood Barons. We have the Southwest Backstabbers against the Skyrim Stormcloaks. And then we have the Eshin Assassins against the Wraith Serpents. So as I mentioned, the Barons are the only team that has so far secured a playoff picture. If you want to secure a playoff stance, you really have to have, at this point, a total of 12 points. We have the Rate Serpents have 11, and each the Night Terrors and the Spartans each have 10. So if any of those 3 teams can win one of their last 2 games or tie both of their last 2 games, they will get that magical 12 points they need to lock in a playoff spot. Now, if for some reason the Night Terrors and the Spartans tie and then they both lose their last game, then they may miss the playoffs if, the Hazmat Hulks or the Stormcloaks can win out, or the Hazmat Hulks can win out. I think the team to look out for, because of the kind of strength of schedule coming up, the Stormcloaks, I think can definitely beat the Southwest Backstabbers. The very last round of the season, they play the Ghoulies. It's possible they could win that one as well, and that's going to jump them up to 11 points. So that 11 points could knock somebody out who's right on the edge if they can't pull out a win if they're in one of those top 4 spots, just because of the sheer touchdown differential that's been going on so far. So I think that that's going to be something to look out for as we move forward. And then, so kind of the last round or week of the season is going to be the Barons against the Rate Serpents. That's a number 1 against a number 2 seed matchup right now. That one will be really interesting to see. The Ghoulies against the Stormcloaks, like I mentioned, that's very critical for the Stormcloaks if they're going to try and even make a run at the playoffs. They have to win that game. The Hazmat Hulks, the Wraith Serpents, or the Eshin Assassins have to win their last 2 games if they want to make a shot at the playoffs. If you draw that last game or you lose one of those last 2 games, that pretty much shuts the door on your playoff picture for season 4. They might as well start training for season 5 because they're not going to be holding up that trophy at the end of the season. So those teams need to play hard. They need to foul. They need to score. They need to do everything they have in their power to win. Look at your gold. Try and use inducements. I mean, if you miss the playoffs, it doesn't do you any good to be sitting in your treasury. Those are the things you're going to need to get if you want to try and make a run at the playoffs here. Kind of my predictions for this week. The Night Terrors against the Spartans. I'll take a look at that game real quick. Let's see what the Night Terrors look like. Night Terrors are all healthy. They got some big mummies up front, some guard. They got some tackle whites. They got some nasty ghouls. One's with agility 4, the other one's with strength 4. Both dodge. Neither of them have blocks, so that kind of hurts them a little bit. Against the Norse, they're going to be a little easier to take down because all the Norse have that block on them. Tons of skeletons to move them around a little bit with Thick Skull. That should help keep their numbers up. Tons of zombies on there. Few with block that'll stand up against the Norse. And one dirty player who I'm sure will be gunning for any and all Norse that hit the ground anytime they can. They're sitting at 3 rerolls, 110k in inducements. So this game right here, this is going to be a close one. I think it's going to come down to really 2 things. I think it's going to come down to if the Spartans can get ahead, if they can use their claw from their Yeti to either get through the mummy or get through those whites and take their armor out, start removing some of those positional players, it's going to be kind of easy for the Spartans to whittle down those other players. Alternatively, if those berserkers can really control the field, narrow it down because of their frenzy, and or look to surf players off the field, they'll be able to get the numbers advantage that the Norse need to kind of pile on to the other players to start to get some removals off the pitch. As for the undead, all they really have to do is catch the ball, grind it slowly off the field, punch it down at the end, and essentially foul their way up the field as much as they can, try and remove as many players as they can, break as much armor as they can. So it's really going to come down to dice. It's going to come down to who can break whose armor and whose injury roll actually knocks someone out of the game. Both the coaches are experienced players, good players. And so I would look for this to be a really close game. So that's the undead roster there. Looking at the K-Spring Spartans, they do have one missing lineman. So this is where the Spartans are a little bit of a disadvantage as they're only going to be running with a total of 11 players on their roster. So they can't really afford to lose anybody. Now they do have some pretty pumped up players. Like I said, their Yeti has Claw, he has Mighty Blow. They have some Frenzy Ulfwiners with that also have Block. Their 2 Berserkers both have Mighty Blow. They got some guard to help protect them between the Berserkers and the linemen to help stand up against the guard of the mummies. And then not to mention they have piling on. So they're going to be able to reroll armor or injury rolls or armor rolls if they need to. And then, of course, Vilkas, who is the star runner, he's got block, he's got dodge, he's got sidestep, he's got strength 4. He's really tough to take down. And you're going to have to roll a power or have somebody with tackle hitting on him to even have a shot. And even then, because of sidestep, he may go a direction you don't want him to, which drops the ball in a rather favorable position to pick up. So that being said, the Norse did pick up their third reroll before the week 7 game, so they do have enough rerolls to stand up against some double skulls and some bad dice rolls that they previously didn't have. But this is kind of what those two teams look like. I don't think any of them look necessarily overpowered or overmatched over the other. I think there's only a 10 TV difference between them, so it should be a really great match to watch. I'm going to guess that this one's actually going to end in a tie 1-1. The Mad Hat Clover Clobbers is a team that is a little beat up right now. They're missing a blocker and a blitzer, which kind of slows down their speed, hurts their agility a little bit. But they still have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're going to need a journeyman thrown on their team. But otherwise, they're sitting pretty healthy. They still have a ton of guard, which is going to be very difficult for Travis to get through. And the big thing that I think where Travis gets in a lot of trouble is I think he's not afraid to take one die blocks. But taking one die blocks against block and, tackle and this guard that's coming up against him is going to get him in a lot of trouble. So the the Clover Clobbers will take on the Ghoulies, but the Ghoulies have some good players of their own. They're going to get Goat back. Goat is a block dodge sidestep agility for Ghoul. There is a lot of tackle, so they negate that dodge a little bit. Still going to be hard to get down. Um, And then they have a strength for White Blitzer. That guy could wreak havoc on a lot of players if he could pick off some of um, the dwarves that are kind of left alone. And then of course, what Travis should be doing is using these werewolves and their claw and their block and their dauntless to go after any and all dwarves as they possibly can to try and claw them, to try and get a removal, and also use that frenzy to narrow that field up as much as they can. Don't let the dwarves get on the sideline, anything like that, because if they do, push them out. So I'm going to look. It's going to be a close one too. I think this one's also going to be 1-1. I think that what's going to happen is probably the Clover Clobbers will get the better of the Ghoulies in the end, but just because of their speed being so slow, they're going to be able to score once. They're just not going to have the speed to score a second time, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with 1-1 with that game as well. Next, we have the Hazmat Hulks, which have 3 players to level up, which is great. They had a big game against the Backstabbers, got a lot of star player points, and so they got a lot of players putting themselves out there. They still have Turf Toe, which is a minus strength, minus armor troll, which is really surprising to me. I would feel like he's bloat more than anything, but they do have him still on the field against the Barons. So the Barons have Hagar and Florian, and both of those players have been pretty unstoppable this season. They are um, leaping in places that you hope they don't leap, taking one die or two die blocks against players. Florian definitely needs to be taken down as quick as possible because he's going to be able to leap into a cage, get a one or two die block on a player with block dodge. And now the thing is if he fails, that's where you got to make him pay. If he just gets a push, if he doesn't knock you down, you got to stomp that war dancer. You got to foul him. You got to hit him back. Figure out a way to hit him multiple times in case you get a push. Then hit him again. Push. Hit him again. Keep bouncing him around like a ping pong in the middle of that cage, and he'll eventually get off the field. The same thing with Hagar. Run the ball with your thrower. That negates strip ball. I don't know if the thrower for the Hulks has any other skills. He just has pass, but that'll negate strip ball with the block. I honestly would. I don't know what these skill ups are. I don't know if they got any statistical skill ups, But running the ball with Kyle makes a lot of sense to me with his block dodge. Granted, the strip ball is going to get through to him. The strength 4 of Florian will get through to him. But you need to get those garters on the corners so that when he leaps in, you're still going to be getting an advantage there, or at least negating that strength 4 to give yourself a benefit. So you alternate your guards. If you're looking at a 5-sided dice here, you want to put your guard in, each of the opposite corners of your cage, whether it's this way or this way. That way, no matter where he leaps in, there's no way to get rid of a guard helping you out. So that game right there, I think that this game will go to the Barons. I think it'll be 3-0, but I think the Barons are going to pay a little bit. I think they're going to have some injuries to account for here. They do have tons of block, but I'm going to guess that they're going to have at least 2 players they're going to be missing next game because of the Orcs' just ability to injure, foul, and just essentially stand up to these agility teams and make them pay for going toe-to-toe with them. Because I know that the Wood Elves play very aggressively. They're going to want the ball, so they're going to be leaping in these cages, and by doing so, they're going to pay for some of those choices to be so aggressive. So 3-0 with the Barons there. I got the Backstabbers against the Stormcloaks. As much as I would love to see the Backstabbers take this one, I just don't see it happening. In this case, I think the Stormcloaks are just too leveled up, too skilled up. They shouldn't have any trouble handling the Backstabbers. I'm going to go with this one's going to be 2-0 Stormcloaks. I don't even think we really need to look at their teams a whole bunch. The Backstabbers are really beat up right now. They're going to have 2 journeymen going in. They've got a minus strength lineman. They got a minus agility gutter runner. Those 2 loners they have 1 blodge gutter runner and a decent Jeffrey Epstein, the thrower for the Skaven, is in there, but no rat ogre to combat some of the strength of the blitzers. No guard to go up against them. They do have a mighty blow blitzer that may be able to get an injury or 2 in, but I don't think there's any way that the Backstabbers can outdo the Stormcloaks in this one. This one's going to be 2-0 to me. And then the last game of the week, the Eshin Assassins have to win if they want to make it into the playoffs. If they do, they got to beat the Wraith Serpents. The Wraith Serpents are very beat up right now, which gives them a good chance. The Eshin Assassins have a thrower that needs to pick a skill, but otherwise they have Whitey, which is Quickfoot, which is a block dodge strip ball player. They have Snip Silent Paw, which is a block dodge sprint leap 2-headed gutter runner who's leaping on 3 pluses. He's sprinting 2 up, 2 up, 2 up to move a total of 12 squares. He just takes a single push and he can 1-turn you from the line every time he gets the ball. Alternatively, they don't have much else. They got a Rat Ogre with guard. They got a couple blitzers with block, but for the most part, they're not going to have a lot of punching power to go up against the Saurus. Now, this is the tough part with Lizardmen is you don't want to base them up and get beat up, but you also can't afford to have them running around all over the place because they're so fast. Well, I say so fast. They're movement 6, which for strength 4 is fast enough to move around and reposition as you need. They're only agility 1, so the way to counter that is you really need to base them up, spread them out. When the Lizardmen get clumped together, that's when they're the most powerful, when they're helping each other out, when they can hit you, and then hit you again, and just go back and forth. If they get a push, they'll hit you with another guy. They get a push, hit you with another guy. That's how they'll take you down. And so being able to spread them out, get the gutter runners moving around, get them moving downfield into attacking position, and then when you do get a blitz for the Essin Assassins, they need to take out those skinks. You need to foul the skinks. You need to do everything you can to hurt all of those skinks that exist on the Rate Serpents, because when they lose their skinks, when Lizardmen lose their skinks, they have 0 ball handling ability. Literally the best agility they have on the team is agility 1. They're picking up the ball in no tackle zones on a 5+. A 5+. So they shouldn't have any way to, if you remove all the skinks, you just go down, pick the ball up, and you score again. Kick off, go down, pick the ball up, score again. You can run that score through the roof if you can take those skinks off. So that's kind of what we have going on there. And then the Rate Serpents, looking at that team, they got some beat up skinks. They had some Saurus and stuff die. There's no Croxagore in this match, so there's no prehensile tail to hold any rats in place. But they do have a total of 6 Saurus blockers that'll be playing, but they have only 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They got a total of 11 players. Then they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skinks. So 5 skinks is what you have to take out. You know, remember Plague Breath here's got an Ingling, so really it doesn't take much to get him off the field. But he is block dodge. So you're going to need to get some of those players with block to take down some of these skinks. Hope you get some pals. Hope you break some armor. And when you get them on the ground and don't break the armor, you need to foul them. That's pretty much how to beat them. You know, you want to use screens more or less for the assassins to keep them at bay. You know, they're not going to be dodging through your screens, but you don't necessarily want to be based up against them so they punch you all the time. So for the Wraith Serpents, I mean, this is just like any bash team. Protect your skinks, who your ball handlers, beat the crap out of the competition. Make sure you're blitzing one rat every single turn. Hopefully you get some knockouts. You know, make as much use of the lurker with his mighty blow as possible. I don't see any, or the Nidhogg. Have Nidhogg use break tackle to get up on top of, you know, some gutter runners and things, so you can start to challenge the ball, cause some chaos, and maybe get a lucky, um, you know, one reroll, one pass or dodge out, something like that. That'll turn the tide for you there. So with this game here, I'm going to guess that this game is actually going to end up in favor of the Assassins. I'm going to go with 2-1. I know that's probably shocking to some people, but I'm really thinking that the Assassins are going to be able to outscore and outmaneuver the Wraith Serpents. And the Wraith Serpents aren't going to be able to deal with a lot of the speed that the um, the Assassins have. And so 2-1's my call there, which will possibly put the Wraith Serpents at a disadvantage if they can't get at least a draw in their last 2 matches. Like I said, for a team to make the playoffs, they got to get 12 points. You know, the Wraith Serpents are just 1 draw away. So, and then the Spartans and the Night Terrors are 1 win or 2 draws away from locking in a playoff spot. The Hulks, the Assassins, and the Stormcloaks. So for them to make the playoffs, obviously, the Spartans and the Terrors can't get 12 points. Not to mention, they're going to have to win both their games, have a good net touchdown differential, and a good casualty differential to overtake some of the other players. Right now, the Spartans have a +5. The Night Terrors only have a +2, so it's possible if the Stormcloaks, Assassins, Hulks can win big their last 2 games, not allow a lot of touchdowns, a +2 is something that can be overtaken. I think, in which case somebody could squeak into that 4th spot, edge out the Night Terrors if they're not able to win out. Same thing with the Spartans. So that's it for week 7. I hope everybody has a good week. Go ahead and schedule your matches and get them entered as quickly as possible, and we will get this season wrapped up, move into the playoffs, and then we will start the Stunty League. So the Stunty League rules kind of have been updated and placed. I had sent a Google Drive image, but I also need to create the actual league rules that'll dictate you know, kind of how much money everybody gets, which is just a million gold, and then how to deal with things like scheduling issues, forfeitures, and things like that. So, hope everybody has a good week. Go tell your moms Happy Mother's Day, give them a kiss, and everybody have a good rest of the week. Talk to you soon.